Hi everyone. Through these months, I've been getting feedback on my channel, and one of the things that you viewers appreciate a lot about my channel, it seems, is my incisive analysis. So with that, I have a very special treat for you today. I'm going to try something new. I'll call this objective-based commentary. So this is a Whizzard versus HP match in Chrome City. I'm testing out the new Net Ready Eyes, and I'm doing this with the Big Breaker Suite. The signature part about this deck is that it uses all the fixed and up breakers, York, Morningstar, Mimic, enhances them with Ice Cover and Net Ready Ice, and throws in a David there to take care of any ice that is beyond the strength of these ice breakers, and uses Retrieval Run and the Stim Hack Clone Chip combo to bring out these expensive ice breakers. So this should allow for a very efficient rig because all barriers that are low enough strength will break for 1, code gates break for 0. So back to this objective-based commentary. Throughout this game, I want you to keep these 3 questions in mind and ask yourself whether I'm accomplishing these goals as we go through the video. Question 1. Can I assemble this rig up quickly? 3 big breakers. Will they hit the table fast enough, or will the opponent be able to rush out before I can even get my breakers on the board? Question 2. Is this rig really as efficient and as well-rounded as the gold standard, which is prepaid Kate's rig? Will I find myself locked out of a server because of multiple strength 4 ice and only 1 net ready ice? And the third question I want to ask is turntable the right choice of console for this deck? I'm slotting in turntable here only because it was just released. I would like you to keep in mind the other viable options, which are Vigil and Grimoire, and we'll see whether including turntable was a good idea after all. So once again, keep these questions in mind as we go through the video, and at the end of the video, I'll give my analysis on that. I mulligan my opening hand because there's no card draw. This hand is much better because there's the inject. It's always a good thing to start off with a quick inject. And one of the best things about inject is it allows you to mill your Morningstar and York during your turn, which means that you can immediately retrieval run them without the court expecting it, anticipating a retrieval run and icing up archives. In this case, neither of the big breakers were milled with inject, so I began setting up my money, and he does the smart thing here. This is a good opponent. You can see the moment you reveal a retrieval run on your inject, they ice up archives, which denies you your retrieval run, which is pretty awful. Here I play very aggressively on his centrals because you want to keep the opponent on their tippy toes. You don't want them to get away with too much money. You want to force them to rest ice, even though you're not Reina. Keeping them poor is good. Slowing them down by forcing them to not score agendas is good. And because of this, I was able to trash the Adonis campaign on R&D because he was only on 2 credits. So this is one big benefit of Whizzard's ability. Not so much the fact that trashing remote access is free. The most important thing is that it actually allows you to dig deeper in R&D because trashing those Adonises and Jacksons are free. So you can basically run twice in a turn if you top deck an asset. So turns out that it was an Eve in the remote, and he made a very wise choice to ice it up even before he rested, because if it's an unrest Eve sitting in the remote, I'm definitely paying my 2 credits to trash it before he gets any ice on board. But now that it's protected by a Nyx Silver, and I do not run Parasites in this deck, I mean, who needs Parasites, honestly, when you have such efficient breakers? Problem is, now I can't get it. And I don't have my Morningstar yet. So it looks like he's going to run away with the drip money, which is a horrible prospect. Let's see what I can do about this. If you've noticed, I've already discarded my retrieval run because I know it probably won't come into play this game, seeing that he iced up archives so early, probably with an end around ice. Over to my turn, I start with 6 credits, going up to 7 with the Visage draw. I have Net Ready Ice, I have Mimic. It's useless. He res a Code Gate and Barrier against me. What am I going to do? I don't have the breakers I need. I do run 3 copies of each Morningstar and York, so having dug through a third of my deck and not seeing it yet is pretty painful. I'm also forced to discard some very powerful cards from my hand, including the Stim Hack. Stim Hack is so important in getting my Morningstar and York out once retrieval run is denied, and unfortunately for me, I was forced to discard the Stim Hack, which is very bad. Okay, here I finally draw into the York. This is pretty important. Now, I want to surprise him with the York install because there is a very vulnerable server, in other words HQ, that will completely get messed up once I install York. So I decide to ditch the Mimic instead of the York, even though I can combo Stim Hack into York. Because if I discard the York, he will know that I can suddenly get through HQ, he will definitely ice HQ up. I'm gonna keep this a secret. If he does not ice up HQ next turn, I'm installing the York and running hard on his hand. I did have a legwork earlier on, I think. I discarded it, it was a mistake, but that's what happens when you're clogged up with cards that you don't need. You're forced to make a difficult choice, and unfortunately, I did not keep my legwork. A legwork would be perfect here. So here, I do my Visage draw to get 1 credit, install the York, and I'm planning to run twice on his HQ. The first nets an NAPD contract, which I gladly steal, and the second nets me another agenda. So even without a legwork, what I did was absolutely right here. Why was this so effective? Because you have to consider that he was spending so much time installing ice, installing assets and upgrades, but he was not installing Jackson. The one Jackson he had was very early on and was used immediately. So you have to figure that he's getting clogged up with agendas, and naturally I capitalized on that, found all his agendas. So 2 things. Firstly, I'm now halfway towards victory. Secondly, and more importantly, I got my York on the table. So that's 1 in 3 breakers done. Once I get all 3 up, the game will become much easier for me. So now he's on the back foot. Actually, not really. He has managed to establish a very good credit lead ahead of me. With this, he can rest a lot of ice, which can prove to be troublesome despite my efficient rate. We'll see how this works out. But letting him fly away with all that money is definitely not something I like. Unfortunately, it just took too long for me to find my York and my Morningstar. As such, I wasn't able to contest his remote. Now I inject and see lots of cards at this point. First, I installed the Page Piper. It came very late, but late is better than never. And I used Career Fair to install the Liberator accounts, without which I wouldn't have been able to install. It also allows me to get rid of cards from my hand, so I'm not forced to discard anything, which is nice. Now here you can clearly see he's trying to score an agenda, and well, I can't contest that. Actually, I could Stim Hack to the remote and threaten a Morningstar, so that's exactly what I do. First click, I make my York net ready, and I go on a Stim Hack run. Whether he resists the outermost ice or not, I more or less certainly bring out my Morningstar, making good use of my Stim Hack credits. We'll see what he does here. Nope, he does not rest the outer ice, so I obviously take the Morningstar out for a ride, use up all my Stim Hack credits, and hit the server. Now, the problem here is I cannot afford to bid 2, because if I do, I cannot trash the Caprice Nisei. And that could be an NAPD in the remote, so either way, I know I'm not getting the agenda in the remote. What I just want to do is to get the Morningstar out. That's a victory for me already, as long as I get the Morningstar out. So he does bid 2 to keep me out. He has so many credits, it doesn't matter what he bids. And I just continue drawing up and getting money. I'll let him score this agenda. It can't be helped really. So good for him. I need to contest the Caprice Nisei as soon as I can, and I think this is a good time. Unfortunately, you have to be concerned that he's running Program Thrashers, and I'm not going to make the mistake of running into a next goal, face checking that. I'm not about to lose my entire York Morningstar rig that I worked so hard to get. Unfortunately, I don't really have too many solutions to that right now. So I have to let go of the card in the remote once again. I cannot afford to run on any of his servers because the threat of next goal is real. Now that I have a clone chip, things are slightly better, but I still need to be careful. If I do want to run, I need to fetch the Mimic out with the clone chip and net ready it before I begin the run. This is to ensure that I can break strength 4 sentries such as next goal. In the meantime, he does get another ABT out. Thankfully, he's not firing off the beta tests, so that's good news for me. As long as he's not making the servers more taxing, I can still stay in the game. Right now, my money is doing pretty good. I have 8 credits ready to be fetched anytime with Liberator accounts, and daily cast is ticking away. I find my last Career Fair, which will definitely be useful for installing the daily cast I just drew into. The problem is, I need to find a way to get my Sentry Breaker out. I'm not sure if there is a Mimic in my heap. There is a Mimic in my heap. What am I thinking? I should be getting the Mimic out and placing pressure on his centrals. But instead, I'm trying to solidify my standing. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I should be playing more aggressively on his centrals. Perhaps I'm finding my medium. I don't know. Alright, so here, this is quite an... this tells a lot. The fact that he did not install a new item in his remote, in his Caprice remote, means that he has no agendas. If he does have an agenda, it's going to remote straight away. So seeing this, I know for sure that he does not have any agendas in hand, so it's pointless running HQ. And I take what I said back. I do not need a net ready Mimic because I have Ice Cover out. So I don't have to worry about next go. I can tutor Mimic on the run. So first he reses a Quicksand against me. Honestly, I'm not too worried about Quicksand this game. It could get horrible. It could get gnarly if the Caprice Nisei fight. If he wins the side game on Caprice multiple times, forcing multiple runs. Again, I cannot destroy the Quicksand, so once it gets out of Morningstar range, only David can save me. Alright, I failed the side game, but R&D is pretty porous. Quicksand into Architect is very easy to break, 3 credits only. And I join to a legwork. Again, as I said, the legwork's useless at this point because if he finds an agenda, it's going in the remote. However, by running R&D, I did force the Caprice out of the remote, so he's not going to be able to score agendas in remotes. But he can Biotic Labor out. That is something I need to worry about. In the meantime, he installs 2 cards in the remote. That's not good. Alright, so in the meantime, I'm joking about how Caprice and Quicksand can lock out R&D. In reality, it's probably not going to happen. Remember that I can net ready eye my Morningstar, and I have Ice Cover. So realistically, I have 7 R&D runs. If I don't win by then, well, I deserve to lose, I guess. So here, I ready up my Mimic and make the remote run, just in case there's an Ichi on the top. Turns out it's a paltry Snake Silver with 3 subroutines that cost 1 to break because Morningstar is awesome. So there is a Caprice at the end of the server, and once again, I force the Caprice out of R&D. Whether I win this side game or not, it's a win for me because now R&D becomes a valid point of attack. If only I had a medium. Well, this is the problem with my console turntable, which I installed earlier. Turntable only gives 1 memory as opposed to medium's Grimoire's 2 memory, and I really do need the memory because Morningstar is such a memory hog. With my entire rig, I'm not able to have a medium on the board, and this is a problem when R&D is guarded by a Quicksand. I cannot afford to run there every single turn, hoping that an agenda comes up because I'll get locked out eventually. So I'm just still going to go through it for now, and I see an Ash that gets trashed. But what can I do? There's not much really. So I'm just going to take money at this point. Hopefully I can find a way to get the medium out without worrying about big ice. I need the David on the board in case he's running some sort of monster ice like Archer. You never know. The last thing this deck wants is for programs to get trashed because that's instant game. So here he basically plays a big come and get me sign on the remote by double advancing the Caprice remote. Knowing that it only costs 2 credits to run each time, I'm definitely going to keep running it, and I win on the first side game, and I immediately win the game because it's a 3-pointer that I was trying to get out. So, were you thinking about the 3 questions at the start of this video? I'll share my thoughts, and you can compare that with what you think. Question 1. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to fully utilize Whizzard's ability to trash his Eves and Adonises because they were all guarded by ice. I had no way of getting in. The next Silvers were the bane of my life for most of the time, and if his deck was any rushier, if he could rush out agendas more efficiently, I think he would have wrapped up the game very quickly. All he needed to do was to guard one server with guard a Jackson Howard in one server, and just chain out ABTs and keep beta testing. I'll just fall further and further behind. Instead, I was able to find my Morningstar by the mid-game, which allowed me to chew through all his servers. But until then, I was completely locked out, and giving HB the drip economy is a huge mistake, especially if your ID is specifically built to counter that. Question 2. Was my rig efficient? Hell yeah! R&D cost 3 to get through. The remote cost 2 to get through. I bet his HQ was porous as hell. That was a very good game for my rig. And it turns out, as you saw, he ran 3 Caprice Nices. I bounced them twice. This meant that he had no influence to run counter ice like Toll Booth, like Lotus Field, which forces the net ready ice on the York, and certainly no influence to run any of the big strength ice. Well, sure, there are the bigger Bioroids, but it looks like his deck is not meant to go that far into the late game, which is ironic with Caprice Nice. His ice are generally quite small, and they were virtually free for me to break, so that is a very nice part about my deck, and it worked very well in this particular game. Question 3. How was turntable? I really miss the 2 memory that Grimoire provides. It would have been awesome to have the medium on my board. That being said, I ran out of cards, I ran out of recursion. Well, there was the retrieval run, but I'd rather save it for another David, so I was never getting my medium out. As for turntable's ability, it was useless because by the time I found my turntable, I was already halfway towards victory. And the worst thing is, turntable is worst against HB, because HB decks tend to play the 2-pointer suite. They either play the 2-pointer suite with Vitruvius ABT NAPD, or they play the mix of 2-pointers and 3-pointers. In either of these cases, turntable does very little work, because typically the corp, upon seeing turntable, they will not score the 3-pointer first, and also because HB, of the 4 factions, HB is the least reliant on agenda counters. There's no Astroscript, Nisei Mark II, or Atlas Infection. So turntable is nullified in this matchup. Well, those are the conclusions I derived from this game. What do you think? Leave your comments in the comment section below if I missed anything out from these 3 questions. And otherwise, thanks for watching. Happy net running. Goodbye.